Always. Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cardellichio. I want to welcome you to Destination Health Podcast. We're going to do another segment. I am very excited. I have my friend on, Dr. Achina Stein. Dr. Stein, how are you today? What's going on in Rhode Island?
I'm doing great, and it looks like it's raining and there's a little snow on the car, but pretty much I've been indoors all morning.
Yeah, same here. That's what I've been doing. You know what? My wife and I, we love to go to Newport. We like the whole jazz festival thing. It's a touristy type of a thing, but we do go in the off season. We go to the winery there and so forth. We go to some of the restaurants. It's always a nice, relaxing weekend when we go. But I want to thank you for coming on. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm looking forward to it. So this is the time I do a little bio. You kind of look around and so forth and so on. So Dr. Stein, she is a board certified psychiatrist, 25 years experience dedicated to psychiatry and functional medicine, and bridges the gap between allopathic, which is a medical doctor, osteopathic doctor, and holistic medicine. This integrative, patient-centered approach to healing offers more extensive diagnostic and treatment options needed to overcome chronic disorders. I love that. Dr. Stein uses functional medicine to help find the patient's underlying root cause of their illness, looking at nutritional, biochemical imbalances. That's what I do in my office. Reverse chronic health conditions from anxiety, depression, fatigue, insomnia, cognitive dysfunction, irritable bowel, autoimmune, all sorts of disorders. She's from Newark. She went to Rutgers University. As everybody knows that's listening, that's where I grew up, and I went to Rutgers also. So, Dr. Stein, thank you for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure. It's always great talking to you. We always chat and
we always have a good time.
We laugh.
We laugh a lot. We talk a lot. And this podcast can go on for 5 hours. That's the way I look at it. But we'll keep it to 45 minutes. So, Dr. Stein, traditional psychiatry, right? And now you've gone over into integrative medicine. You're doing both of them. What was that moment for you when you realized that you had to get into the functional medicine, functional nutrition, integrative medicine aspect of what you're doing now?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I mean, it's
right out of the gate.
It was initially a slow transition over, because I was finding that with my patients that I was hitting a point where they weren't getting better, and I was like trying everything in my toolbox. And I was definitely not the traditional psychiatrist. I do psychotherapy. I use psychotherapy diagnostically. I was more of the biological, psychological, and social approach, not just pure meds. I've never been that way, and I will never be that way. But using psychotherapy and supportive therapy and other modalities to help people get well has always been part of my way of approaching patients, even before I started doing functional medicine. But then what happened back in about, I think it was 2010 actually, when my son had a serious mental health crisis where he had a tiff with his brother, and we were actually in France. We had taken our kids out of school and homeschooling them in France because my husband is a professor and he was on his sabbatical. So we thought, oh, let's make this a family trip, and we'll make this a nice trip. And but one of my sons was missing his friends, and he was upset about that, was sad about that, and then he had a little argument with his brother, and then suddenly I couldn't find him. He was gone, and we were in this 2-bedroom apartment, and I look out the window and he's standing outside, and we're 5 floors up, and he's standing on the ledge ready to jump.
Oh my goodness, you must have been mortified as a mom. I mean, what goes through your mind with something like that? You're like,
I know.
Oh
my God. So basically
that is the biggest oh my God moment in the history of God.
Right. So, he had a major meltdown, complete meltdown. And you know, both my husband and I have psychiatric issues in our family. We have a family history of it. And so we thought, okay, this must be it. This is our, you know, one of our children now has got major depression and anxiety issues. But the thing that made me realize that this has got to be something more going on is that he suddenly couldn't read. And so, you know, being the traditional doctor at the time, you know, it's like, this is a neurological thing. This is not psychiatric. And so, you know, once we got home, I took him to a psychiatrist and, you know, we got him on medications. He ended up being 4 medications. Because
How old was he, Dr. Stein? I'm sorry for interrupting.
14. He was 14 years old.
My son's age. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he was not the son that I had. But the thing is, like, I kept pressing, like, well, why can't he read anymore? Something's going on in his brain. He can't read anymore. What's going on? He was an avid reader, and he had a brain that would just, you tell him once, he would listen to a song. He knows all the words. He would read paragraphs and he could repeat it, you know, right away. He had that kind of mind, and suddenly it was gone. And so he was in high school and we had to convert all of his text into audio. Some of the textbooks fortunately had audio. So he was studying through listening and he just couldn't read. Nobody could answer that question. It's like, what's going on? Something's not right here.
Right.
And so I got very frustrated. I just had to do my own research and did a deep dive. And by the way, most functional medicine doctors go into functional medicine because they don't find answers for their own health or their patient's health or their family's health, right? So those are the people, it's like they're the ones that hit hit a dead end. And it's like, I can't rely on the traditional medical system anymore. I got to do my own thing. And so I happened to find a great functional medicine doctor, not knowing what functional medicine was. That was my introduction. And I asked to shadow him for about 6 months. And once I saw the work that he did, and his name was Ed Lavitan, his practice is currently called 5 Journeys. And I couldn't believe the difference in some of the patients that I was seeing on these visits in a matter of months. So I said, you have to see my son. And long story short, he got him well by looking at finding the root causes, which ended up being celiac disease. He had a lot of food sensitivities. He was tremendously malnourished, and, you know, he had years of severe, I thought he was a normal kid, but he had years and years of severe constipation, years of eczema, which was like, this is just who he is. You know, but it's not, those are symptoms. Those are not normal. It's not normal to be constipated. It's not normal to have severe eczema, but those were the early signs. And why did it happen when he was 14 that he had this massive tilt in his immune system? It's because he hit puberty, right? His immune system was already handling all sorts of issues. And then he hit puberty, and that's what tilted his entire, like, puberty is your whole remodeling of the body. You're turning a boy into a man, a girl into a woman. That's huge remodeling. And it takes an enormous stress. It's an enormous stress to your immune system, and all these hormones are surging, right? So that's why it happened then. And so he was able to reverse a lot of symptoms, and the constipation and the eczema were the first thing to go. First thing to go within a month of changing his diet. And that's when my son was completely sold on this. Like, he dove into the whole process, bought into it. And within a year, he was off some of the medications. His mood was significantly better, and the anxiety and his sleep was significantly better within 6 months. But by 2 years, he was completely off meds, completely well. And the thing that took the longest was the problem that caused the reading. And we figured out that he had so much inflammation in his body that it affected the cranial nerves of his eyes, and he had double vision.
Oh my goodness.
Double vision. That's how severe the inflammation was. Yeah. So that took a while to get better. And because the cranial nerves are very, very sensitive, you know.
Yeah. You know, thank you very much for your personal share. And we all of us are in the functional medicine field because there was that brick wall, family member, then it's us or whatever that is, that comes about, you know, my story, you know, with the heart attack, and I've kind of changed my practice because my son was diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm working with him, food sensitivities, the gut issues, the intestinal permeability, you know, that comes along with all of this stuff. It's amazing how your food and these food intolerances and these food sensitivities play havoc with biochemistry, with metabolism, with physiology, and you don't know how we don't know how it's going to affect some individuals. You know, for your son, I'm coming back. Son, it was, the psychiatric, and here you are a psychiatrist too, right?
Exactly.
And here you are a psychiatrist, and you're like, I don't know. You know,
I know.
it's amazing what we can do as functional medicine practitioners.
Right.
I'm happy that he's okay, and I'm happy that he's going, because really at the age of 14, they should be worried about hanging out with their buddies.
Yeah.
They're going to go to the movies, or, you know, whatever that is that they like to do, the ultimate frisbee, you know, getting out there and having a good time with their friends. That's what they should be worried about at that time.
Yeah, actually, the difference that it made in his life made me think, you can't unknow things once you know it. And so how can you continue to do what you're doing, just prescribing medications? And even though I did more, in my opinion, I did a lot more than the average traditional psychiatrist, I knew at that point that I had to learn this. Like, there is no doubt that I have to do this. And so I literally left my job as medical director of community mental health center and asked this doctor who treated my son to hire me.
And by the way, I need X amount of money. I need insurance.
No, I took a major salary cut. I was getting I went from a really good salary, very comfortable salary, to working as a in a first year, not even a first year psychiatrist, salary, because I felt it was so necessary to learn this. And I took it as, this is what I need to pay in order to have this training. And I became part of this gem of a practice called Visions Healthcare. It was one of the largest practices of functional medicine that accepted insurance, but unfortunately they had to close because they just couldn't do it with the insurance model. Unfortunately, they just couldn't do it.
Doesn't fit.
Yeah, they tried. They really, really tried. But in the end, I learned how to do functional medicine. That's all I do. I do psychotherapy. That's not really true. And I still prescribe medications, but not anywhere near what I used to, nowhere near. And I get people well.
Right.
And I even got myself well. I mean, I had my own health issues.
That was my next question. We're talking about our personal experiences. And, after my heart attack, this became an obsession of mine, where I was deep diving, like you say, into every journal that I can get my hands on. And then I said, I got to go for training. Let's get the master's degree. Let's do this, whatever that is, because you can't go back. I mean, I was taking Lipitor, Tricor. I was taking statins like you couldn't believe. And listen, you know what? My triglycerides were 1227. So I agree. I mean, like you said, medication, appropriately. I mean, you want to bring that down at that particular juncture.
Absolutely. Yeah, you absolutely should take medications if the benefits outweigh the risks. But so if you have cholesterol like 600, 800, or triglycerides as high as yours, I mean, you absolutely want to take medications.
Right.
And then while you're taking those medications, to find the root causes. So, I had Hashimoto's, had Epstein-Barr virus, and I had just delivered my third child. And this was back in 2003. And I had the perfect storm. That was my perfect storm that caused me to have significant fatigue and, for years. And, but I didn't, really address my issues until after I learned functional medicine. And I feel younger now than I did when I was 30. So it's just, you can reverse things and really get yourself feeling a lot younger very quickly, actually, if you really do the work. It does take work. It definitely takes work.
Sure does. And let me, you know, you just hit upon something. I'm 60. I just turned 60. I feel like I'm 20. You know, I have as much, it's like, come on, James, let's go for a run, or come on, I mean, he beats me because, you know, I'm a little decrepit in my knees and my back, but still, but I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. And he's looking at me like, Dad, but you feel better about yourself. You have that I don't want to say self-confidence, that self-esteem. You're just your body is functioning at a higher level, you know, mentally, physically, and emotionally when you're doing this. And it's really quite remarkable.
Absolutely.
Right? It's really quite remarkable. So tell us a little bit more about your story. What happened?
So I had Hashimoto's, and I had a thyroid storm, and I had always wanted to have a fourth child, but because of the thyroid storm, I didn't feel comfortable getting pregnant, and it took a while to stabilize that. It was really on high doses of thyroid medication. My antibodies were in the 3000s. The TPO antibodies were really, really high. And then it came to a point where once it was stabilized, my three children were old enough where, like, you know what, let's just move on. I got rid of the crib. It's just like, so, but to this day, I kind of wish that didn't happen so that I could have had that fourth child, but you know, it is what it is. But, you know, I was able to, I was left with fatigue, joint pain, really, really bad allergies. I was on 5 medications just to manage my allergies, a couple inhalers. I was on Singulair, 2 antihistamines, had very severe eczema as well. And, by using the functional medicine approach, I was able to resolve all of those symptoms. No more brain fog, no depression. I was even on antidepressants. I was started on antidepressants because the Epstein-Barr virus and the hypothyroidism really caused not a significant depression, but enough that, it interfered.
You're feeling down a lot of the time.
Yeah. Just not, just not being able to have that, high energy that a doctor needs in order to function. But anyway, so all of that, got better, and I'm not taking any medications at all for the allergies or the, no antidepressant, was able to taper myself off for that. But I'm playing ultimate Frisbee, and I'm 58 years old. So, I play.
I was going to say 21, Dr. Stein, but that's okay.
I wish. Thank you. No, but I definitely feel younger, and I'm able to play, competitively. I'm actually going to I'm in the Grandmasters tournament in New Orleans in April. So I'm playing. I play pretty regularly, and I love the sport, and it keeps me young and play with a lot of younger people. So it's a lot of fun.
Isn't it great when you're playing with younger people and, you kind of outdo them, and you kind of look at them and say, I'm 58. How old are you? I get that. I like doing that.
Yeah, I do too.
So tell me, in your practice with the coming out of this pandemic, or kind of still being in this pandemic, what have you seen in your practice when it comes to mental and emotional disorders? You're seeing more anxiety, seeing more depression, is, people, they're just gaining weight. They're just not taking care of themselves. What does that look like for you in your practice?
Well, I mean, all of the above, but what comes to the forefront is the uncertainty. When is this going to end? When is this going to end? And the isolation. I mean, isolation is like the new smoking. So you can, people who are sedentary and isolated and uncertain about the future, that's to me like the triple whammy of causing depression and anxiety. And I think it's really important to know that this will end. I really feel in my heart that this is going to be the last, like Omicron's the last bit of it. And once spring comes around and people are able to get outside, and I feel like if there is another wave, it's probably going to be extremely mild. And because that's just the course of a virus, it does mutate to the point where it just becomes endemic, and it's not going to ever go away completely, just like tuberculosis and malaria have never gone away, but, and it'll be just like the common cold at some point. And, we don't, if we tested everybody for having a cold, everybody would be positive, right? So people need to focus not on, oh, this many thousand people are positive. What they really need to focus on is like, how is it affecting their health? Are
Right.
they being hospitalized? Are they dying? And it's really focusing on that. And those people at this point who are hospitalized and dying, how old are they? And what are their comorbidities?
Mhm.
So even though they might test positive, doesn't mean that that's the reason why they're in the hospital,
Mhm.
right?
And
Now they're
and
testing
for our
everyone who's
right.
admitted now is tested for COVID, but so they might happen to be positive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the reason why they're
Right.
actually in the
And they may not
hospital.
even exhibit any symptoms. Some people do, some people don't. It is,
Exactly.
as
Right.
you said, it's acting like a virus right now, and that's
Ex- a
that's
regular,
actually a good thing.
normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill virus at this point. Yeah. And sure, probably the vaccine has helped in reducing the
Mhm.
numbers of people who have the
Right.
morbidity and mortality, but in the end, I feel like it's on the horizon, this ending. And so what people need to focus on is, what are the things that, first of all, to know that it's going to end. Okay. Even plagues
Right.
from ages ago ended. Okay. So just know that the
Right.
Spanish flu ended, and so at
Hong
some
Kong
point
flu
it
ended,
will
swine
end.
flu, it ended. You still
Right.
have it, but it's not what it
It's not going
was
to be
when it first started. Right.
okay, to know that it's going to end. The second thing is
Absolutely.
to focus on what you do have, what is consistent in your life that you can depend on, and to ground yourself into those things,
Mhm.
grounding yourself in those areas.
Right.
And so it's really important to know what you are certain about, and to make connections with people as much as possible. And it doesn't have to, I mean, yeah, sure, physical connection is obviously really, really important, but it doesn't have to be physical. I have
Mhm.
some really close relationships with people that I talk with all the time. You
Right.
can have very deep relationships with
Sure.
people online or on the phone or even texting. And so constant contact with people is so important. Finding ways to give people and getting um, what's the word I'm looking for, getting fulfilled, in your heart
Yeah,
by
you have
those
hope. You have
interactions.
that hope and you have the fulfillment. I agree. I had a patient that I was that's still a patient to this day. And it was, a quarter of the way through the pandemic and they haven't been out. You get the mail, you have the food service drop off, and she was mentally, going, and you could see she was agitated, she was aggravated. It's outside my wheelhouse, and I was ready to make the referral, which I ultimately did. But I said to her, you know what? There's a nice park by your house. You know, I said, go to the park. I said, so what? It's snow on the ground. If you don't want to be on the trail with everybody else, if that's not what you go in the middle of the go in the middle of the park, you and your two young kids, and I don't know. Go barefoot if you want. Whatever that is. If that
Oh, frisbee.
there you go. And you know what she did? She did do that, and she was like, "Wow, that was like the best." It changed her whole perspective because that isolation, I think, is so powerful when you're in. You and I were essential, so we can go out. So I made sure that we were shooting hoops in the front. We were going for runs, we were going for walks, taking appropriate precautions, whatever that is for each individual, because, being isolated could be really traumatic for somebody. And for extended periods of time, that could be really bad, right?
Absolutely, especially if you're extroverted and you're not a loner and you don't know. So it,
You and I are not extroverted, so.
I mean, I do have some patients who felt like the COVID was a godsend, being homes, going to school from home and not having to deal with bullies or
Right,
having to deal with if they're socially anxious, not having to deal with that. So
right.
it served as a way to avoid those kinds, and they were happier. And so it depends on your personality and your temperament. You know, I think so it's going to be different for everyone. But I think the other thing that people don't realize and don't think of is that when you are homebound, so to speak, whether it's by choice or because of COVID or whatever, your indoor ventilation is generally poor, especially in the winter, because you're not opening windows. And so indoor pollution is pretty high, particularly in the wintertime. And it could be just from high CO2 levels.
That's right.
And then there's also all the VOCs that are in your environment, especially if you have, brand new furniture or carpeting and all the dust and, like there's so many things that accumulate.
Right.
Right. There's, and all the, perfumes or detergents, Febreze and all of these things, these chemicals that are in the air can really affect your brain, absolutely can affect your brain and your body. And so getting outside just to have exchange of oxygen. And
that's so powerful in addition to have that, right?
Yep.
You feel better. You do some breath work when you're outside during this time. Makes you feel better. You get more energy. You have a better outlook. You're a lot calmer. That's normal anyway when you do that, right?
Right. Absolutely. So people don't realize just how much it's important to have that ventilation, clearing that ventilation, and some people have it even worse if you have mold in your environment and don't even know it, you're breathing that in. So it's getting outside just to breathe fresh air is so important. And opening up the windows once in a while, even if it's cold outside, just to get that air exchange. It's amazing what a difference it really makes.
It does. Well, I can tell you now that if my son didn't play hockey, I'd probably be somewhere in Miami right now. I'd probably be doing this podcast from the beach. Probably have my bathing suit on with the shirt, with my flip flops and stuff. Because the cold weather here in the Northeast, because we're chewing some of the same dirt, sometimes it gets a little too cold, for me. So it's all good. Now, what are some of the tools that you have in your toolbox? Do you do food sensitivity testing? Do you do anything like that? Do you order that test?
There was a time when I did food sensitivity testing for every patient in the very beginning, but I found that everybody that, at least that I saw, because I see really sick people, that their food sensitivity testing would light up like a Christmas tree. So there would be a lot of high levels across every category. And even with foods that they like, I don't even eat that. Why is that lighting up? Like, that kind of thing. And so
I get that all the time, by the way.
Yeah. So, my interpretation of that is that if you have poor digestion, where you're not breaking down your foods to the point where it's small enough to assimilate, in across your gut lining, and if you have increased gut permeability, which is also known as leaky gut in the layman's term, that combination right there is going to cause high food sensitivity issues.
Yes, it is.
So to me, it's better to resolve the digestive issues and heal the leaky gut. And that's looking for root causes of, where, it's not just, root causes of inflammation, which is in the categories of foods, infections, toxins, stress, addressing those things, replacing what's missing in the body in terms of nutrients and minerals, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, re-inoculating the gut microbiome and repairing the gut lining. And then after that, perhaps if it looks like someone's having trouble tolerating foods, then doing the food sensitivity testing is more helpful.
You know what? I think you just taught me something, because I think that's a great approach, because once you can heal that gut, maybe those food sensitivities start going down. Because I go through the same, I don't eat apples and I have a sensitivity to apples. You don't have to eat the apples. Or if I'm going to eat, this particular protein source every day, am I going to get a food sensitivity because I'm eating too much? No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. What are the top 3 conditions that you're seeing in your office right now that's helping out with functional medicine that you can really get into it with a patient?
Well, because my background is psychiatry and mental health issues, my practice is called Functional Mind. So people find me because they have depression, anxiety,
Mhm,
fatigue, brain fog, and they have gut issues.
mhm.
But people who understand functional medicine, they may not have those issues, but they
Mhm.
understand that functional medicine addresses all issues. So even though you might find me for depression and anxiety, you'll
Mhm.
also find that your skin rashes are going to go away, and
Right.
your joint pain's going to go away, your migraines are going to go away as well. So sometimes people see me just for those things, even though
Sure.
they see me as a psychiatrist. So I address a lot of conditions, but I would say that the most common were depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
fatigue, brain fog, IBS, chronic pain.
A lot of
Um,
IBS, right? A lot of
yeah,
chronic
a
pain
lot
at
of
this
a lot
time.
of IBS. So yeah, unfortunately, the
Mm.
traditional world has indicated that when you have IBS, it's because of your psychiatric issues. It's really the other way around. Your
Mhm.
psychiatric issues are because of the
Your
IBS.
IBS, right,
Yes,
right,
it's
because
the
you
other
find
way
once
around.
you work on the IBS, that starts to, subside. A lot of the psychiatric issues, they do,
Absolutely.
start
It
to,
goes away.
subside.
Yeah.
So why psychiatry for you?
Oh, well, I've always been fascinated with the brain and the
Mhm,
mind. And originally I was, planning on going into
mhm,
neuroscience and behavior of animals. I was fascinated with all of that. And then, when was applying to grad school and doing an internship in my senior year of college, I saw that the track had to do with, vivisection
mhm,
and of animals, and I just didn't want to dissect animals, even though my first research project was with rats, and I don't
mhm,
care for rats, but I still didn't like you know dissecting them. And and then there were other labs nearby that had dogs and cats in them. It's like, I can't do this, I just can't do it. So I applied to medical school because that was also a love of mine as well,
mhm,
just the human body and physiology. I did really well with physiology and chemistry. And
mhm,
so, but I didn't have in my mind as to being a psychiatrist is thinking more like a psychologist. But
mhm,
then my mother had a severe mental illness. She had, I think in the background, what was working in my mind was trying to figure out what happened to her and
mhm,
why
mhm,
she had so many issues. And in retrospect, she had been given a diagnosis of schizophrenia, which I think was completely inappropriate. And I think
mhm,
she had very severe major depression. And after I write about this in my book, What If It's Not Depression, that I believe her root causes had to do with moving from another country, being India, to this country, having a complete change in her diet and lifestyle.
big change in lifestyle.
Yes, not speaking English, being completely isolated. And I think gluten was her downfall.
Right.
And she had severe rheumatoid arthritis,
Mhm.
which can cause depression, lots of inflammation in her body, to the point where she had, in those days, did gold injections in the joints. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I've
So
only
she
been
had,
practicing a few years, so we don't
yeah.
remember that stuff. So, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
she died at a young age. I mean, to me, it's young. She died at the age of 63, and she
yeah,
looked like she was 83.
right.
And so I think I was operating from trying to figure out what happened with
Mhm,
her. And I feel like I've come full circle in becoming a psychiatrist. I've always been fascinated with the mind, and wanting to help people in that way. And it was something that my mentors told me that I was really good at. And
mhm,
yeah, I have this way of thinking that's not black and white. I think in the gray. And
right,
I think that makes really good psychiatrists to
right,
look at all possibilities, but it also
right.
makes a really good functional medicine doctor
Yes, it
too.
does. Yes, it does. It's interesting what you said, and we're gonna get into your book because I was waiting for the segue into your book. So since you mentioned it, we'll get into that. But I think that, was there a lot of, migration from India to the United States at that time,
I
when your mom
believe so. I believe so. I think it came after, actually more in the 80s,
it came in
1980s.
the
So
80s. And
Yeah,
and
I didn't come in the 80s. No, I came when I was 2 years old. So
right,
it was for me, it was 1965 for me.
right.
But we were one of the first Indian families in Edison, New Jersey, actually.
And let me
So,
tell you something, Edison
and
right
now it's
now,
little India, right?
it's like where I grew up in North Newark, Dr. Stein, where it's, we were Little Italy. It's Little India. And if you didn't have the point is, if she was isolated and she didn't have a large support system with a lot of immigrants around her, I mean, I can see where that can play havoc because, Sundays in the Italian American family,
Yeah.
everybody was there. So whether you spoke English or not, it was irrelevant because everybody was, either, I had great grandmothers alive. They weren't speaking
Right.
English. I was
Yeah.
speaking Italian to them or Sicilian or whatever dialect that is. Now you wrote a book.
Yes.
All right. Tell us about the book. What was the motivating force? What's the book about?
Well, the book is about what I do in my office day to day. It's called "What If It's Not Depression?" And I feel like there are a lot of people who are put on medications for what we call a wastebasket diagnosis of depression.
Mhm.
And so, what tends to happen, and this is the kind of person that I see in my office, is the classic person is between the age of 35 to 65. They're feeling run down, their moods change. They might have some mood lability, mood swings or
Mhm.
irritability, their brain's like not sharp, brain fog, feeling tired, trouble sleeping at night, trouble getting out of bed, getting motivated, just like, and I mean, people see that more now because of the pandemic, because it's like burnout. It's burnout,
Mhm.
right? And so you go to the doctor or your other medical professional, and it's like, and you explain how you're feeling. They do blood work. Oh, your blood work's all normal. You just must be depressed. And they are handed an antidepressant.
That
And
happens so much. Am I right?
it happens way too much. Way, 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 way
You're
too
just
much.
a little depressed. There was the Rolling Stones song in the 70s, Mother's
Mhm.
Little Helper, right? I mean, you got a little something, something to just take the edge off or whatever that case may
Right.
be.
And so unfortunately, what happens is that, just so the people in your audience know, it's really inappropriate to give an antidepressant for mild depression.
Mhm.
It really needs to be severe enough or serious enough where it's moderate to severe, because you want the benefits to outweigh the risks.
Right.
And many times people are given these medications without even getting any informed consent and without ruling out all of the different causes of depression. Even
Right.
if they do some blood work, they may not actually do all of the blood work that's necessary to, even from a traditional standpoint, conventional standpoint, some providers give a prescription without doing any blood work at
Right.
all.
Right.
And that is not the standard of care, just so people know. That is
Right.
not the standard of care, even in the conventional world.
Mhm.
Conventional world is there are certain root causes that you should rule out. And what's conventionally known is hypothyroidism, B12 deficient, folate deficiency, anemia. There are so many things that can cause depression and anxiety that aren't even searched for by the traditional doctor. But that being said, my book is about all of the reasons why it got to this point
Right.
where it's where there's how the medical system is set up to actually cause your provider to fail, because it's like 15-minute sessions. There's not enough psychiatrists to actually do a full assessment.
Mhm.
So then other providers have to do who aren't as well trained, and we're not paid to do things for the time that we spend.
Right.
And so the quick fix is that silver bullet approach of just providing an antidepressant and hoping that'll do the trick, so to speak, until
Right.
it doesn't. And so my book lays all of that out, but also explains what depression truly is
Mhm.
and how it's confused with other things, as well as all of the root causes, all of the possibilities and solutions, including diet, movement, meditation, stress reduction, cleaning up the gut, reducing stress, and getting
Right.
rid of toxins, right? All of that is in my book.
I think that you have given us the title for our next podcast, Dr. Stein. What is true depression? So I'm going to get your book and I'm going to delve into it. And I think that we're going to discuss what that is, because I think that is a really great topic. Okay. Because we're at 45 minutes right now. We're rocking. It just went by so quick, right?
It didn't feel like 45 minutes at all.
It seems like we just started the whole podcast, but that's okay. As I said to you earlier today, we're going to have you back on. So I think, what is true depression? I like that. I think that's a great topic to discuss. And I think that's very interesting. To me, it's very interesting. And I think for our viewers, it's going to be very interesting. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to bestow upon the audience today? Anything else? If the floor is yours, you can say anything you want. Okay. You can talk about the Frisbee. You could talk about whatever it is you want.
Well, you know, when it comes to Frisbee, I think it's really important for people to keep searching for a way to move your body that feels good to you, and without having to think about it as exercise. You know, my doctor told me to exercise, you know, like that kind of, it's finding.
But they never tell you how to exercise or what to do too, right? I mean, so.
Right. But you can just moving your body, dancing, turning on some music and dance in your kitchen, you know, that kind of thing. That's, hey, to me, as long as you're moving your body, that's great. So that's, I just wanted to say that. But, you know, if people are interested in more of what I do, they can go to my website. It's www.achinasteindo.com. And I do have a YouTube channel called What If It's Not Depression with Dr. Achina Stein. And I interview lots of people who specialize in, you know, in resolving certain root causes, or there's alternative ways or methods about of resolving depression. And so people will be enlightened about, wow, depression can actually be caused by mold toxicity. Wow, depression can actually be caused by Lyme's disease, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And so it really is a lot of good information. And many of them are functional medicine doctors, but they're not all functional medicine physicians. Are, you know, there are other medical providers, but even energy workers and people who have
and there's a place, right? There's definitely
a place that they can go to, right? And it's also a podcast too on Spotify and Apple. I think.
And Apple, that's where we are.
iTunes. Yeah, it's not.
I'm going to have all of that in our show notes so that people can, and they can purchase the book via the website. Through Amazon.
Yep.
Right. Well, I will make sure all of this is in the show notes. So, you know, for everybody listening, you know, if you feel a little down, feel a little blue, you know, you think you have some depression, some anxiety, whatever that is, you know, we only have really the best of the best of the best. And Dr. Stein is the best. So please contact her. Okay. And make sure that, you know, see if she can help you out, and I'm sure she can. So get the book, read the book. I'm going to read the book. We're going to do a podcast in about a month or so, and we're going to have What is True Depression, because I think that's fascinating. But go to the website. I'll have it in the show notes. Go to Amazon, go to YouTube, and listen. Educate yourself. Get inspired. Give Dr. Stein a call. Okay?
They can book a free discovery call if they're interested in working with me, because I do have a boot camp.
That's awesome. When is your boot camp?
I just started a new one, but I'm enrolling people into the boot camp every month. So if people are interested in finding their root causes of depression or anxiety, they can. It's a 12-week online boot camp, and every week is dedicated to different root causes. So it's educational. With videos and live Q&A for 90 minutes every week. So we do a lot of, you know, energy kind of work, as well as therapy kind of topics. So we really look at everything that can affect your brain, but also cause depression and anxiety.
How do they get to the boot camp?
Well, they can go to achinasteindo.com.
And it's through the website.
And they can book a discovery call with me to see if it's right for them.
All right. Awesome. Listen, we highly recommend that you contact Dr. Stein. Again, we only deal with the best of the best of the best. Yes, she's my friend. Yes, but she is the best. So thank you
Yeah.
very much, Dr. Stein, for coming on today. It's been a great conversation. It's gone really quick. We're going to look at another one. What is true depression? I think that's our next one. I want to thank everybody for listening in today. Everybody lived their best lives. Thank you very much, Dr. Stein, for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
All good.